Hi, I'm Brooke and welcome to Tech Tuesday at 2. This year, Tech Tuesday will be completely online, so we'll always be right here on our live stream. Today, we'll be learning how to create our own Instagram interactive filters. Let's get started.
Hello everybody, welcome to the first Tech Tuesday of the semester. As you can see, we're in a bit of a different setting than what we're used to. Normally we're in the Edmond Lowe Creative Studios. I'm coming to you live from an undisclosed location. No mask, I'm sorry, but it's okay because there's no one else around me right now. Usually we'd have prizes for you, we'd have an in-person discussion, in-person workshop. Today we're just going to do everything virtual. The prize that you get is knowledge, which is the best prize of all. And today we're going to discuss how to make filters for both Instagram and Facebook. They both use the same program because they're both made by the Facebook Corporation. That program is called Spark AR, and we're going to go ahead and first talk a little bit about what it's capable of, and then also we're going to work from very beginning to the very end of doing everything you need to do to create a filter, publish it, get it on Instagram, get it on Facebook, and get your friends using it. So, just to start with some inspiration to see what you can do, I don't remember back at the beginning of the year, everyone was using those, like which Disney princess are you, which Nickelodeon character are you, filters to which random whatever thing are you filters. You can do a lot more. Those are pretty easy to make. I'm going to start with my favorite here, which is made by Florian. To me, this is like the Sistine Chapel of filters. You can see he has this like AR goggle thing going on. And then right here, the camera goes into it. He's controlling this vehicle with his face. You can see his face in it. You can see I loved it. I'm going to give it a Carriac now, just to update that. Next one, this cool thing where this guy's like a seagull, and when he opens his mouth, he flies faster. This is made by Adriano. I'd really love to know how he made this like realistic water effect here. This one is really neat because it shows some of what you can do with 3D models in the program. This model here is actually being controlled by the person who has the camera facing them, and their own eye movements, their own eyebrow movements, their mouth are controlling this model here. And this is made by Pedro. Another little game someone made, Sergey here. This looks like something you'd find in the App Store. Just a nice little game to kill time with. You just control the little spaceship there with your face. Another one, this girl has made some very interesting ones. I love her aesthetic. This is Mitsuko. All of her ones have this really interesting, kind of surreal take on it. Here's another one of hers. Thank you, Mitsuko, for this inspiration piece. Another one that I just think is a really cool effect, just a cool look. This is Samuel. This looks like something to me you'd see like maybe in like an Apple ad. This is something for later. We also have some that I made myself that you'll be able to see here on the board behind me. This first one is on Facebook. It has not published to Instagram yet. We'll talk about how publishing these can be a bit squirrely sometimes. But if you go to Facebook, you go to the stories and the filters, you tap on this happy face icon. We have a Pistol Pete one right here. And as you can see, I modeled the mustache, the hat. The university's Facebook account published it through their own. So it's an official filter that you can find on the university's Facebook. At the library, we have also made our own. This was for a campaign we did earlier in the year. Let me turn my camera around so you're actually looking at me. If you just go and search, you can actually search on Instagram filters. You can't seem to search on Facebook filters from what I can see. But if you just search OkState or OkStateLibrary because it's us, this one has a preview. You have to make video previews for when you upload on Instagram. This was for which seat in the library I got floor, and you can see I was pretty happy about that. So those are a couple that I have made myself. So we're going to go ahead and get started now with the actual program, now that we're all fired up and inspired for what you can do with these filters and how you can make them. First thing you got to do is you got to go to Google Spark AR, and then this first result here is where you'll go to download it. You just click download up here. I've already done that. Once you download it, you can just open it from your desktop. The first time you open it, you're going to have to sign in through Facebook, so you're going to have to use your Facebook account. There's a new version. I'm going to skip this for now. And we can see There's a lot of templates here for getting started. Spark AR is actually a program that's very easy to get into. It's very easy to start, but the more fancy you want to make your filter and the more nuance and the more gadgets and gizmos you want to include in that, the harder it is to master. So there's a bunch of templates. There's actually one here that would be perfect for what I'm going to teach you all to do today, but we're going to do things the hard way. And if you want to follow along at home, we're going to post a link in the comments so you can go and download the things that we're going to use today. So I just click this new project, and down here on the bottom right we have blank project. We're going to start completely blank, completely from scratch. We're going to do that the hard way. That way when you go back later and you want to do it the easy way, you have a better frame of reference for what's going on. So you'll notice we first open the program. We have this nice preview here of a handsome man. There are actually 8 different people you can preview from. If you go over here to the left, there's this camera icon. You click that, and they're varying race and gender here. So you can get a really good frame of reference for what your effect will look like. If I had a webcam connected to this computer, which I do not right now, there would also be an option here for me to connect a webcam, and I could just have a webcam in this preview here. And then also you can click plus and import different assets that you'd want to preview your filter on. So we'll go back to him for now. Just a couple control things really quick. Here in the main view panel, we have the ability to, of course, it's a 3D program, and so we need to be able to move in and out, look all around. So if you have a mouse with a scroll wheel, obviously scrolling in and out will zoom. If you click on that scroll wheel, it'll pan just on one plane. And then if you hold down the right mouse button, you can swivel around. You can also do this by holding Control and the left mouse button. So I'm holding Control and left mouse button right now, and I can swivel. If I hold Alt and left click, I can do that pan again. One thing we're going to add really quick to our setup here, we're going to go to View, and there's a Show Hide Patch Editor. We'll go to what that is in a moment. But we're going to go ahead and click that. And so this pops up here, and we're going to work in here in just a bit. And so now that we have everything kind of frame of reference, we're going to go ahead and get started. Right now there's nothing going on in here except for an ambient light, the camera, a microphone, because you can control things with your voice in this. Right now we're going to right click in here, we're going to go to Add, and we're going to add a face tracker. And you can see there's these gray arrows that popped up in front of the man's face. That means it is tracking his face. And the face tracker is actually very powerful. It can actually tell a lot about your face. It can tell if you're smiling, if your mouth is open, if your eyebrows are raised, if your eyes are closed. But we need to build on top of that. So we're going to right click on the face tracker, and we're going to add a face mesh. And now we have this kind of little creepy looking mask on the man here. We're going to leave that checkerboard for now, because I'm going to demonstrate something in just a moment. And from here, we're going to go ahead and get started bringing things in. So bringing things into the program is actually very easy. You can drag and drop just from like a window into here. You can click from computer and find a specific file. We're going to just drag and drop. So I have the same Pistol Pete mustache that I made for OSU's Pistol Pete filter. The mustache that I gave y'all is a different, more generic mustache because Pistol Pete's mustache is not mine to give away, but will suffice for you. We're going to go ahead and from here is our assets panel. Here's what's actually going to be in the scene or actually in the filter. So we're going to click and drag him up here. Just a real quick note as far as what kind of files Spark will take, because it's very particular. For 3D models, you want to use either a .fbx or a I think it's GLB. There's also .obj. To find those, I made my own in a program called Cinema 4D. That's what I'm most familiar with. But if you want to make your own, I would recommend getting started with Blender. Blender's free. It's open source. Very easy to use. Very easy. There's a lot of tutorials out there. It can also natively export the .fbx and GLB files that you'll need to work in Spark. Another program you might use, if you find a 3D model from another source and you have permission and you want to be able to use that in your filter, if you have Windows 10 at least, is, let's see where to go, Paint 3D. Paint 3D is pretty good at taking in all kinds of different file formats for 3D objects, and you can export them natively into .fbx or .glb, whatever you'd want to use in your scene. I like .fbx because, at least from Cinema 4D, I can export the materials that I already have on there, so like any textures I applied to it, and then also a more advanced feature if you're doing 3D animation, which you can import 3D animation into Spark, and .fbx is a good facilitator for that. So I dragged and dropped my mustache into the scene, and you can see it's way down here. It's way too big. And when I click just on the word Pete Mustache here, the arrows that I would use to control it are way up here instead of down here where the mustache actually is. So I'm going to fix that. There's an arrow here on the left. I'm going to drop that down, and there's another word for Pete Mustache, and when I click on that, now my arrows are where I want them to be, right in the middle of the mustache. So I'm going to actually drag this under Face Tracker. It'll ask me this. I'm going to say confirm, and I can just click on this first one that's not right and delete it. And as you can see, it's already following where the face is. It's still not in the right spot. It's still way too big. So I'm going to actually pause this for a moment so that it's a little bit easier to use. To get it where I want it, I have up here this blue square with the arrows in it. This is our move tool, and that's what these arrows down here represent. I can just drag it up on the y-axis. The red one is X, Z is blue for depth, and I'm going to drag it up kind of in front of his face here. And I can go zoom in and finely tune this, try to get it where I want to under his nose. If I wanted to rotate it, I could use this rotate tool right here, and these circles will pop up, and I would be able to adjust it that way. I can also adjust the scale this way with this right square here with the two boxes, and with that I would be able to either grab this square here and shrink the whole thing proportionately, or do weird little stretchy things with it by using each individual handle. I think for this, I remember liking it at 0.6 all across the board. I can finely tune each individual element of this mustache right here on the right side of my screen when I have it selected. So I'm just going to change everything in here to 0.6 on the scale. You can also check the position here, the X, Y, and Z coordinates. You could set very specific ones. Same thing with rotation. I'm going to zero these out for a moment. You'll see why in a bit, just to make sure that everything is nice and kosher. Now, the mustache is pretty close to where we would actually want it on his face. And I could, if I wanted to, drag it exactly there and call it good and think that that's nice and fine. But the problem is that everyone's face is a little bit different. Everyone's nose is a little bit different size. It sits differently on their face. And so you want to make sure when you're working on one of these that it's going to be user-friendly across the board. And how we're going to do that is this window down here that we opened earlier. So I'm going to click and drag this Face Tracker 0 down here. And it's going to create these three boxes. This patch editor is almost like visual coding. If you've worked in Blender or another 3D modeling program, you may have seen something like this, where instead of writing a bunch of code, you have a visual representation of the kind of different functions and interactions you want objects to have. So here we have Face Finder, this green box, which is this face tracker. It just detects the face. And then we have Face Select. You can actually have multiple faces in a filter. So you could have one person wearing a hat, one person having a mustache, a third person wearing sunglasses, up to 5 people you can have. And how you set that is this index here. This index right now is set to 0 because there's only one face. It actually starts at 0. If you wanted to have multiple people, you'd actually duplicate this, and then set this index to 1. And that would be 1 is your second person, 2 would be your third person, and so on and so forth. But for now, we're only going to have 1. And then this is actually the 3D coordinate, scale, rotation, and element of the face. So how we're going to make this a more user-friendly mustache is I can either add new patches by right-clicking, and I have a whole window here where I can search or go into different menus to try to find, or I can double-click, or I can go to the node that I want to take out, which in this case is face. I'm going to click and drag on that, and then I can find this menu here for face landmarks. I'm going to choose the nose. And so it automatically connects it. One of the good things is that you can't connect something that's not going to work. And if you do, Spark will immediately tell you that you did it wrong and that you need to go back and rethink your choices. But usually if it's not going to work, it's just going to reject that and not let you do it. So now that we have this square for nose, I have the bridge position, the left nostril position, the right nostril position, and the tip. And that's what we're going to click and drag out. And I'm actually going to do some math here. So I'm going to go search for add, and this is going to give me a math function that we can work with. But we have one minor issue, is that by default it only gives us one number, but there are three numbers we need to be concerned about with the position because X, Y, and Z coordinates. So when we click on add and it's highlighted in blue, down here on number we can actually drop that down and go to vector 3, and that's going to give us three numbers that pull from the tip position of the nose that will now translate to the position of our mustache. And all I have to do is choose what I want to add where these zeros are. So if I wanted to add 1 inch to the top of the tip of the nose and have it just rest a little bit higher, I could just type in 1 there and it would do that for me. To actually connect this to our mustache, I'm going to click on the mustache here so it's highlighted in blue. And then over here on the right where it says position, there's this arrow here, and when I move my mouse over it, it turns yellow. I'm going to click that, and down here in my patch editor, now we have a yellow box representing the 3D position of our mustache. And I can just click, drag, and connect these, and it automatically translates it now to where it says the tip of the nose is. I haven't added anything yet, and so that's what we're going to do now. I can bring it down just a little bit on Y. And here you have to be pretty careful because Spark AR tends to like small units. If I just type in 1 and hit enter, the mustache disappears, and you want to know where it goes, it went way up there. You can't see it. That's a bad design for this filter, not for the program. So I'm going to do 0.1 and see what we get. It's still too high. The mustache is now on his forehead. So let's try 0.001. Actually, we need to do negative because we're trying to go below his nose just a little bit. A little bit lower, so we'll do negative 0.005. And that should be about right. I kind of like where it's at, cutting into his face a little bit there. And now when we hit play, we see that it follows his face perfectly. It's a decent size. It sits right where we want it, under the nose. And now let's get rid of this checkerboard pattern so we can actually see what's going on and we can make sure things are right. So when I click on face mesh 0, which is what this checkerboard pattern here is representing, over here on the right, there's this tab for materials. I'm going to hit plus and then create new material. And now it's a nice solid kind of white mask. I'm going to double click on the word material 0 up here at the top, double click material 0 again so I can name it. I want to name it occluder because that's what we're going to do. We're going to make an invisible sort of mesh that hides part of the mustache so that when we turn our head, what part is behind us would be hidden. If we look down, the nose would hide part of the mustache. For shader type, let's put it to flat because we don't want any lights that are in the scene to affect it. We'll add lighting later. And then we're actually just going to turn down here opacity down to 0 so it's invisible. And as you can see now, the nose is covering up the mustache exactly the way we want it. There is a problem though, which is that, I'll angle it like this so you can see what I'm talking about. If I move my mustache up in the hierarchy above the face mesh, now the mustache is no longer covered by the nose, We'll fix that really quick. Normally, you know, it wouldn't be too bad if it just stayed like that. You just kept this hierarchy here, but you really want to make sure that no matter where it's at in the hierarchy of this group of objects that are following the face tracker, that no matter what, this occlusion mesh, this shader that we're using to hide pieces, will hide what we want it to hide. How we're going to do that is right here at the top of this part of the screen where it says layers. Just like in any other design program you may have used, Spark AR has layers. We're going to add one, double click it to name it. I'm going to name it occluder. It really doesn't matter what you name it, just as long as you know what it is. And then this part's really important. You got to make sure you drag it below layer 1, because there is a hierarchy there. So it's below layer 1. And now, when I do that same thing where I move the mustache above face mesh in our group, it completely contradicts what I said. But you should, oh, I know exactly what happened. I skipped a step. I'll put that there so you can see what I'm saying. I'm going to click face mesh. And now over here, our face mesh is yet to be put in the occluder layer. So I'm going to click on layer, occluder, add objects and children, and now we have fixed the problem, and no matter what we do, that should hide whatever other object is in this group. So now we have a good solution. So I'll go ahead and hit play. I can click on this video part. We'll check it on all of our models here to make sure that we have what we want. I might lower this mustache just a hair to negative 0.006, just so it looks better under the nose. And so now usually, almost no matter who uses this filter, the mustache should be in just about the perfect position. Of course, there's always going to be a little bit of exception to that because everyone's nose is different, but it's as close as we might be able to get it for now. So this is a pretty okay start to a filter. We have a nice little mustache, we look handsome, it follows our face, it's hidden by the parts of our face that need to hide it. We can make it more fun though. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to have this mustache wiggle when we open our mouth. To do that, we're going to hang out with this guy here because he tends to open the mouth out of any of these other models that are available by default. He's a pretty cool guy. So from here on face select, where it says face, I'm going to click and drag out to make a new node. And I'm going to search for mouth, where I have mouth open. And this gives us this square where we have two different options to pull from. There's mouth open, which is a binary state, either the mouth is open or it's not, and then mouth openness, which is a measurement of how open the mouth is. We're going to start with this first one, where we pull out from mouth open, and because this is going to be an animated filter where the mustache rotates and animates and wiggles around when we open our mouth, I'm going to type in loop animation. It comes up right there. It automatically connects into the node that we need to, which is enable. We'll come back to what these little gadgets mean, the duration and mirrored. So we're going to pull out from progress, and we need to transition the state of the mouth being open or not into a number for us to pull from. So I'm going to go to transition, and then kind of like our add item up here, we're going to need to change what we're pulling from. So right now it has 3 numbers for the X, Y, and Z coordinates. We only need 1 because we're only going to manipulate 1 number for the rotation of the mustache. I'm just going to change it to number so it's just 1. And to show you which number we're going to use, it's this 1 here on the very end of our mustache. And so if I were to type in, say, 60 on this very last number, the mustache completely rotates on its side 60 degrees. But we're not going to do all of that just yet. We're going to have a start. We'll say negative 8 degrees and 8 degrees. So it would be like this, and then like this, the other way. Oops. And then one more, which is pack. So this is where we actually are going to specify to put those numbers, the -8 and the 8, into that specific z coordinate of our rotation. So we want pack. It's in the wrong node, which you want. It was plugged into x by default. We're going to plug it here into the third one, which is our z coordinate. And now what we can do, just like we did for the position, over here on rotation, when we highlight this arrow in yellow and click it, we get the yellow box for the mustache's 3D rotation, and we can plug this in. And now it should be that whenever, there it is, whenever his mouth opens, the mustache rotates. But you can see it's a bit odd. One is very slow, and then also it has kind of a jarring kickback effect where it restarts. So how we're going to fix that is we're going to go back to our patch for loop animation. We're going to hit mirrored first, and that makes it smooth to where it will, instead of having a hard reset, as you can just see, it will smoothly animate back and forth. And duration is how we're going to speed it up. So 1 is very slow, that's 1 second. We're going to make this really fast. So we're going to hit like 0.05. There we go. That's a wiggly mustache. That's what we want to see. Now we can polish this a bit more by having it actually respond to how open the mouth is. So the first thing we're going to do is go to our mouth openness and drag out. And here's where things really become sort of like coding. We're going to type less than. We're going to make a sort of equation here. And to give us ourselves a margin, we're going to say 0.15. So if the mouth is open less than 0.15, which would be about 0. Oops, I'm going to make a if then else statement. And we're going to kind of break what we just did up here. So we're going to need to now drag this down here for our transition, break this link to our pack, and now have it here. And we can even make it to where the mustache wiggles less when the mouth is less open and wiggle more when the mouth is more open, which is going to take us back to the beginning, to our mouth openness here. I'm going to drag down again. I'm going to do this twice. I'm going to make a multiply, and I'm going to make another multiply. And because we're multiplying by a fraction, I'm going to put some bigger numbers in here, like 20, let's say. One of these actually needs to be -20. And instead of having this -8 and 8 here, we'll swap them out. And so now, when the mouth is only open a little bit, you just get a little bit of wiggle. And then where here in a moment he's going to open his mouth really big, you get a lot of wiggle. So it's just a little bit more polished, makes it a little bit more fun. To zoom in and out on your patch editor, if you're using a conventional mouse and keyboard, you can hold Control and use your scroll wheel. If you hold Alt and use your scroll wheel, you'll go left and right. If you're using like a trackpad on a Mac, you just use your pinching maneuvers. But this is a bit of a mess. Luckily you can rearrange these so it's not just a jumble of chords anymore, which I will do right now just to clean things up and make it less cluttered. Because we'll do more here in the patch editor. So just to go back to kind of what the program is thinking, we're tracking the face. It's selected specifically his. We're tracking his mouth and how open it is and whether or not it's open to tell the program whether or not to wiggle the mustache and to what degree to wiggle the mustache. And we're also telling it to track his face, specifically his nose position, to tell it where to put that mustache. So now we have something a little bit more fun and more interactive that would be fun for people to use. We can make it even more fun by adding some sort of like a sparkle effect almost. So what I'm going to do now is right click on Face Tracker. I'm going to go to Add. We're going to add a particle system. And you can see now we have this thing here just shooting out all kinds of checkerboards at us, very violently almost. These checkerboards are coming out. I'm going to do a similar situation to what I did for the position of the nose, where I'm going to drag out from our face tracker, track out face, and instead of the nose, I'm going to say eyeball. So eyeball, left iris. I'm also going to do an add just to make sure that we can get the exact position we want. Make sure that we highlight it by clicking on it, change it to vector 3 so we get all 3 coordinates that we want. And now I want to left click this arrow by position when I have the emitter selected, so we get the yellow box for its 3D position. I can plug that in. It snaps directly to the iris of his eye here. I'm going to bring it out just a bit by saying, let's say 0.01. That should be pretty good. I'm going to do 2 of them, so I'm going to hit Control V. So we have another emitter here. I'm going to go down on our eyeball patch to right iris position, add again, make sure to highlight it, change it to vector 3, 0.01 so it matches, get the position of emitter 1, and now that's there. So now they're shooting out. Obviously, checkerboards aren't a very fun thing to shoot out of your eyes. We're going to have stars, some nice orange stars because we're OSU. So I've already made this PNG with an alpha layer. I can just drag and drop that in. When I click on my first emitter here, I'm going to go over here to the right where it says materials. I'm going to create a new material. And I'll double click that, double click material 0 again up here at the top and say orange star. Change it to flat for a shader type. Again, so when we add lights later, it won't be affected by that. And then for texture, because we've already imported our orange star over here, when I drop this down, we just click orange star, and now we have some nice, vibrant orange stars shooting out of our eyes. When I go to emitter 1, I can say just orange star, and now it automatically adds, both of them have that. But it's a little weird if you just start off with stars shooting out of your eyes. You've got to be really excited to have some stars shoot out of your eyes. So what if we go back here to our mouth open one, and depending on how open your mouth is, that triggers the stars to shoot out of your eyes. So I'll click on the mouth openness, drag out. I'm going to make another less than statement. And let's say less than 0.7. You have to have your mouth open pretty wide for this to trigger now. So less than 7. I'm going to click and drag out from there. I'm going to get not, which is just a binary statement. Is it less than 7 or is it not? And then on my emitters here, over here on the right, there's this part where it says visible, and there's a checkbox which confirms that they're visible. I can click on that arrow for both of them and connect them to this not statement. And so now when the mouth is not open more than 0.7, the stars don't shoot out. But if the mouth is open more than 0.7, in terms of how the program is measuring it, as we'll see in just a second, there it is. His stars shoot out. So that's a pretty complicated little patch that we've made there. If you've been following along and if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them in a moment. If we wanted to make this work for more than one person, what we would do, select all this except for this, is that we would copy and paste it, and we'd have to duplicate this face tracker too. So we'd hit right click it, duplicate, so now we have 2 face trackers. And we'd basically rebuild all of this, keeping in mind that we need to set this index to 1, and then reconnect everything up here, except that we need to specifically use the objects that are under face tracker 1 rather than face tracker 0. So instead of this emitter 0, we need to use this emitter 0. And instead of this Pete mustache, we need to use this Pete mustache when we're rebuilding this. You can copy and paste it. So if I just did this, I'd be able to do that. Of course, it is automatically connected to the first face tracker, so you need to break that link. But for now, we'll just keep it as a one-person deal. So as I said earlier, if you had a webcam connected, you could preview the app on yourself, preview the filter on yourself right here in the program. We do not, but you can hook your phone to your computer and preview it from there. And how you do that is this little button here on the kind of near the bottom left on Test on Device. Now, if you're an iPhone user, I think you're in luck because Samsung and Android have to do a little bit of a workaround, as I'll show in a moment. But all you have to do first is go to the App Store, download Spark AR Player, or the Google Play Store, get Spark AR Player from there. As you can see, I have a Samsung because I'm a grumpy old man. I do not have an iPod or an iPhone or AirPods or any of that. I'm sorry. So if you're like me and you have a Samsung or an Android device, here's the weird workaround you're going to need to do. We're going to show it up here on the board behind me. So I'm going to bring down my little menu here. At the top right, there's the gear icon for my settings. I'm going to tap on that. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom, go to About Phone, and then click on Software Information. And here's where things get weird. On build number, you have to tap it 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It even had a countdown for it. Developer mode has been turned on. You have to turn on developer mode on your phone to be able to preview from the Spark AR Player through your computer. But we're not done yet. Go back 2 screens to that very first one. Now we have developer options here at the bottom. We got to click on that. And down here, scroll down a bit where it says USB debugging. Turn that on. So now, when we go back to Spark AR, if you'll notice, now Android device appears. I'm going to go to the Spark AR app on my phone, and now it has this code representing specifically my phone where I can hit send. And now it's sending it to my phone. And like I said, I think you can bypass all that if you have an iPhone. And we see there's a weird error going on here. I'm not sure what is happening. At least, exactly what happened is that our face tracker 1, which we duplicated, was not deleted. So it's adding that and having everything go off because it doesn't recognize that there's not a second face there. So that was an error on my part. Let's try that again. I'm going to go back, test on device, send. And now, there we go. I can control the degree of how much that mustache wiggles, and when I get really excited, I can make stars appear all over the place. So that's a nice, fun, interactive filter. You can use this now. By the way, on that Samsung thing, or Android, I'm not sure if it's specific to which, you don't have to do that every time. You don't have to go through that debugging process every time. Once you do it, it does it until you turn it off in your settings. But now that you have the Spark AR Player on your phone, and you have that loaded onto it because you sent it to it, you can go around, test it on your friends, test it on your professors, have everyone that you know try it out and look at it before you publish it, which we are now pretty much ready to do. When we're ready to publish, there's a button over here that says Upload and Export. We're going to click on that. It's going to check a bunch of boxes. So, like I said, you can upload to both Facebook and Instagram. There's some weird differences in what you can do in both of them. So Facebook has a higher file size limit than Instagram does, and Facebook can track hands. Instagram, I think you can only track faces, but in Facebook, you can like track hand movements. You can have like gloves on people's hands, like the Go Pokes foam finger you would have at a football game. But we meet the requirements for both because our file is small. So first, we're going to go to Export File, And by the way, you really want to make sure you save often in Spark. Spark is technically still in beta, and every time they make an update, you have no idea how stable that's going to be. It's almost notorious for fixing instability on one edition, and then on the next edition breaking it, only for the next edition to be a fix, which they'll break in the next one. So save often, like every time you make a change. So I'm going to go to Documents. We'll say Fun Mustache. And I'll go in there. We'll name it Fun Mustache. Save. And so we have our confirmation that it's saved there. We have to have specifically this .ar export. So you want to make sure you hit export. Otherwise, you won't be able to upload it properly. Now we go to upload. It's going to load this thing. And after it's done loading, it's going to automatically open up the page where we'll actually enter all the information for whichever platform we're going to upload to. You have to choose one every time you upload. If you're going to do Facebook and Instagram, you have to upload them separately. So you choose Facebook or you choose Instagram. Here in Upload Effect, that's where you upload your .ar export here. You give it a name, you give it categories, you can put in keywords so people can search it. You choose which page you want to own it. So like I'm admin on several different pages. You can choose whichever one you want. If you're going to Instagram, you have to make a video preview, as I showed you earlier. And basically what that entails is uploading like a temporary version to Instagram, making a video of it, and then uploading that. We won't do that here because it gets it's a bit of a process, but that's what you got to do to get on Instagram, is have a preview video and then upload image. So you're going to have an icon to upload it. And it's going to be basically like an app icon that you would see in the App Store or on the Play Store. In this little page here, if you just Google Spark AR icon, this will be the first page you find. And it gives all of the details of what you need. Here's a little template. You want to make sure that everything, first of all, is within this green circle here, but all the very important things are here within the red circle. Otherwise, it's going to get cropped out because it's going to show up as a circle when you go to select it in the app. And down here is like kind of a good example. You don't need to have the circles in the image. They don't need to be a part of it, but you want to make sure that the actual elements are in there. So like here we have the NBA logo, and it's nice and flush within this red circle, so it's not going to be cropped out. You want to save it as a .png or a JPEG. I recommend JPEG, and it needs to be right here. The file size needs to be under 1 MB, and also the size needs to be, I think, 200. Here it says 480. I think that's for a different platform. Oh, for Facebook. For Instagram, I think it's 200. There we go. Yes, there's another difference. On Instagram, it needs to be under 200 pixels, 200 by 200. On Facebook, 480 by 480. So there's a discrepancy there. So I just make one for both. That's under 1 MB, 200 by 200. That's what you want. And then you upload it here. And then also, for publication date, you can have as soon as possible or set time and date. To be honest, if you're making this for an event or something that's time-bound by a campaign or something like that, I would upload it as soon as possible, because the approval process, someone has to actually go in that's hired by Facebook to approve of your filter. And they have a lot of weird rules. And sometimes that can take a couple hours. Sometimes that can take a couple weeks. I've heard people having it a couple months. That's very rare. Usually it's a pretty reasonable amount of time, but get it in early. I think that's the best advice there. Some of the things to look out for is that one of the most common things people get rejected for is what they call static text. And that means if I were to go in here and just have the OSU library logo as like a static image here in front of the guy, and it didn't do anything, it just sat there, they would reject that. Partly because it's boring and lazy, but also that's just part of the rules. They want to make these fun and interactive, and that's not fun and interactive. So it would at least need to be tagged to his face. It would at least need to be something that follows his face movements. That's what they mean by static text. It needs to be dynamic in the sense that it's following the face tracker. And that's one of the most common ones people get in trouble for. You can have text in the form of instructions, but only the instructions that they allow you to, they have built-in instructions that you can give people. So over here, if I click on device, and then it says custom instructions, what I would say is on opening, choose an instruction, see all instructions, and because the mustache and the stars are triggered by our mouth opening, type in open your mouth. And now, if we were to go back to preview it on our phone, that open your mouth would stay there for a few seconds so that you know to open your mouth and make the mustache wiggle. That's the only static text they'll allow you to have, is if you do that. So that's generally it in a nutshell. There's a lot more that you can learn about Spark AR. There are some people who've made some truly, truly incredible things with this. If you want to learn more, first of all, YouTube is your friend, but also the Spark AR community public group. There's a lot of amazing people in here who have helped me a lot learn, and they're always willing to help. If you have anything you want to learn, like say there's a new feature that I haven't gotten to try yet called Render Pass. Fairly recent, but there's all kinds of people in here who have done amazing things with Render Pass and have tutorials on how to use it. There's another feature called a LUT. I think that's how you would pronounce it, or LUT. Basically, it's like those normal Instagram filters you would use that just change the color and the sort of style of what the image looks like. So if you want it to be very cool with deep blue kind of filter, that's how you would do it, is here on a LUT. And I included some in the link that I shared earlier for that Google Drive that you can play with. I have an orange one that I made just in Photoshop that would allow you to make like an orange kind of OSU themed one. There's, if you Google Spark AR Fast Color LUT, there's a template for how to use them. And it's made by this guy here, Josh Beckwith. And you can download this. He has tutorials on how to use it, the things you need to download, and some instructions on how to get started. But you can also find all that through the Spark AR community. So, in a nutshell, that is Spark AR and how to make Instagram filters. I'm going to look over here to see if we have any questions that I might need to answer. Let's see. What have we got? Are we giving prizes at the end? I am very sorry. We do not have any physical prizes to give away today, but I hope that you've been enriched by the experience. How about making a filter to change this t-shirt to orange and putting the Pistol Pete logo? There is actually a way to do that. I would consult the Spark AR community because that's a bit beyond my current knowledge, but I've seen things exactly like that. I would go here on this Facebook group and you can search through. That might be one of those things that go with that Render Pass feature that I mentioned. Also, in the program, let's go ahead and save this just so that I have it for posterity. Fun mustache. I'm going to go ahead and close it. All these templates here have a lot of use. So there's things like 3D animated poster. You can have it to where it looks for a specific image, and then when you scan that image, things happen, things pop out. You might be able to use that to replace a t-shirt, or also 2D stickers. There's all kinds of things you can play around with in here. But other than that, I think that would conclude it for today. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming out, checking out Tech Tuesday online, all virtual. We'll be back next month, another Tech Tuesday at 2 on the first Tuesday of October, which is the 6th. So tune in October 6th for another rousing Tech Tuesday at 2 online, all virtual. See you there.
Thanks for watching. I hope you learned a thing or two about how to create your own interactive Instagram filters. Catch up on our old videos on our YouTube and make sure to tune in next month for Tech Tuesday at 2.